diversification, and this has come about because of the current climate climate changes that we have been experiencing. It has been a very difficult time, especially for people who are in very arid areas. We have been experiencing droughts, and right now, I think that the current number of people who are facing hunger and starvation is about 4 million. And so I took it upon myself to look into some of the ways that we can help to curb this particular pandemic so that we do not all suffer from drought or we end up having like a crisis on our hands. So what I came across is crop diversification. I think we should really, really invest our time and our resources in understanding how we can be able to diversify our crops and what we can be able to start planting that can help curb this situation. So you may ask, what is crop diversification? So crop diversification is the reallocating of lands and capital and farm equipment and labor from a particular crop that you used to have before, and taking all that resources to be used in into a different crop. So for example, maybe you were planting coffee and then you diversify into avocados. That is what I mean when I talk about crop diversification. I have seen that there are so many benefits into actually going into crop diversification, and I'll give you some of them. So one of them is different times we get different we get people who have different needs in the market. So we may find that the consumers who are already on the market and want to, the ones that are buying into the product, the demand, those consumers may change. They vary, they change, and they want different products in the market. For example, so maybe we had people who were interested in maize before, or maybe we had people who were interested in beans and all these things, and then all of a sudden that market collapses, and now what is really, really interesting to people is tomatoes. That's what I mean by consumerism. So once the consumer's needs changes, then that market changes. So you as the farmer who had the maize before, you need to understand what you can be able to do so that you can, be able to regain that market. And that is how you come about by taking on and bringing a different crop. There is also, like I just said, climate changes. Climate changes are happening everywhere. And so it will make you lose your crops, lose all the profits that you had. So as a farmer, you need to be very, very aware of the climatic changes so that you may be able to change and diversify into something else. There's also um, there's also the reduction in prices. Sometimes the market was very ripe. We had a great market for the product that you had in your farm, and then all of a sudden the prices they have gone down, and all of a sudden now you do not have the profit that you used to make before. So that can also make you that may also be a reason for you to change and make the change into a different type of crop that you didn't have before. There is also the ever changing government policies. Government changes can also affect a farmer because one time they may introduce subsidiaries, the other times they're introducing taxes and levies that are really very, very difficult for farmers to be able to cope up with. So that may also lead you as a farmer to decide let you just to change the crop that you have. And so those are some of the reasons that may cause that may make a farmer to change and change the crop that he had previously been using, had previously been planting into a different type of crop, which, like I said, is very advantageous, because once you look at all the reasons that we have given above, you truly will understand the reason as to why a farmer may choose to diversify his crop. It is not a very famous, or it's not really adaptable. It has not been used a lot by farmers because it's still a new concept, but people are trying to push, and we have done a lot of investigations to try and understand and to try and push for farmers. There is a lot of education going on for farmers so that they may be able to understand the benefits of actually crop diversifying, and how it can help not only them but can also help the country at large. So this is a very important topic, and I would like you to give us more. I would like you to give us suggestions in our social media pages. You can leave a comment. You can tell us some of the examples that you want to share of crop diversifying, and then we can have a discussion down in the comments. So today, I'm going to be introducing a guest later on who's going to be giving us a bit more of, who's going to be giving us more about this. Who's going to be talking about the topic and telling us, in giving us an in-depth look into what we need to actually do and what exactly we need to start investing on, and the kind of products that we need to be looking for, and also the kind of policies that we need to be following so that we may be able to get the best out of the best out of crop diversification. So another thing about diversifying our crops is the benefits outweigh the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. They outweigh the disadvantages because once you diversify your crop and you decide to go into different different into a different route, and maybe, like we had said, going into the avocado business, from going from the coffee business into the avocado business, it will make you also a very, it will give you a lot of profits. It will be a very profitable business for you, because you'll get to be among the first to experience the market. You'll get to be among the first to experience the benefits of jumping into a new market and being able to get those consumers to buy into your products. So that is a very major benefit that causes most farmers to actually diversify from one crop to another, because you get to understand all the labor and all the resources that you had put into buying, into purchasing land and planting, and all the amount of money that was kept into the farm is now going to be changed into a different thing and bring you profits, which is a very good thing. So the guest who's going to be coming is going to be explaining more about that. And also, we're going to have to ask him about the government policies and what the government has done to increase the farming drive into trying out this particular way of farming. He's going to be telling us more about the government policies that have been implemented, the taxes, and I cannot wait for him to come so that we can be able to have a better and more in-depth conversation. Mhm. Hmm. So the we can talk about the advantages and the disadvantages as we wait for the guest to join us. He's going to be joining us. He's not going to be joining us live. We're going to have to call on him. So some of the advantages. Some of the advantages of crop diversification have truly changed the market. Different markets around the world have grown out of crop diversifying, and in some instances crop diversification is not only about just crops. You can diversify into animal farming. So you were once a farmer who you were once a farmer, and then now you're no longer a farmer, you're a livestock breeder. So it's not just about crop diversifying about just crops. No, 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 no. We can also diversify into animal farming. So we're going to be going on a short break, and then later we will be bringing in the guests to join us and explain us more about the crop diversifying.
One, one. Hmm? So some of the advantages, once you have a particular crop, the crop that was, maybe it takes up space, especially when you're growing high yielding crops, you tend to find that you use a lot of space. And so once you start diversifying your crops, you are able to segment and put different, you're able to segment your land so that you can be able to create space for the particular new crop that you are going to be planting. So that is also a very major benefit, because it does not only work for people who have a lot of land or a lot of space to plant, it can also be helpful for the small farmers, the very small farmers who may have smaller pieces of land. So that is an advantage, because now it not only are you including those who felt that they weren't able to be farmers, become farmers in a very big lands, but now you are including farmers who are also small owners. Another major reason for crop diversification is the seasons. We tend to have different seasons throughout the year. So we have rainy seasons, dry seasons. So now the minute you decide to diversify your crops, you tend to now have seasons of crops throughout the year. There's not a single time that your farm is going to be lacking. There's not a single time that you're going to be losing any income, because you're going to be able to get farm produce continuously throughout the year. So whether it's during the dry periods or whether it's during the wet seasons, that is also a very big advantage. There's also lesser risk for crop failures, and also an increase in resilient crops, because the more you tend to your soils and you're looking into different sections to plant different plants, it makes it easy to be able to it makes it easy to become to have resilient crops, because the resilient crops they come from being able to have good management of your soil, having people who can tell you more about the soil, and also it by you learning more about the soil, you're also preventing another difficult problem that has been disturbing farmers for a very long time, which is soil erosion. So as you're studying about the crop resistance and crop diversification, you're also studying about soils and helping a lot. So but everything has an advantage and a disadvantage. So in just the same way that we have a lot of advantages, we have disadvantages as well. So, okay, I'm hearing that our guest is now on air. We can be able to have a talk with him and he can tell us more about the crop diversification process. Hello?
Oh,
Hello? Sorry,
no, you
we are
can.
having a little bit of issue with our guest, but he's going to be joining us very soon. As I was talking about, we have a lot of disadvantages also, because once you are diversifying your crops, it may also be a very difficult process for a farmer, because of the amount of money and labor that is to be. Has our guest? No. um so some of the disadvantages, as I was saying, is a farmer may not have enough labor or enough money to be able to maintain such a big farm, to be able to maintain tending to all the crops, tending to everything that he has Okay, I'm hearing that the guest is with us. Hello.
Hello, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Sam. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, oh, good evening. Thank you for
Good
joining
evening to
us.
you. How are you?
Thank you for joining us on the Farmers Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Sam is an agronomist. He has been doing this for a very long time. So, today we're going to be engaging him on the benefits of crop diversification. So, Mr. Sam, what can you tell us about crop diversification? Is it a benefit or is it a benefit or is it a disadvantage for farmers?
So, thank you very much, Madam Buki, for the host. And I think the first thing I should do is I should do an introduction on what we really mean by diversification.
Yes.
Because in my understanding, I think I have uh, two meaning of the word diversification. Now, when you talk about crop, of course. So, and the first meaning of diversification is this where now we introduce or we do farming in more than one enterprises. That is, we do more than one crop on a given area. That is the first meaning of diversification. So the second meaning, this is where now you introduce or you tend to change the cropping system that is in current use, and then I've heard you talk about things like avocados and like you change from coffee farming and then you move to to another farming like avocado, let's say. So that is also a diversification by itself. Yes.
Would you advise farmers to diversify, especially during these difficult times of climate change?
Yes. As we talk right now, we have so many challenges in particularly in farming, and one of the reason or one of the solution to these challenges in farming is by diversification, because you'll be able to find out that when you diversify your farm, like you have, let's say, a piece of land like 1 acre, and then you change how you plant, and maybe you choose like two crops per season, or you have two crops that you are growing, or even more. You see, by that you have diversified. Now, what usually happens, and the reason I'm terming it as a solution to the current situation in or the current problems in farming, is that you'll find out that some of the crops we are doing in the farms sometimes might fail. You see, now if you have another crop that is doing well, and when I mean failing, it may both fail by the prices,
Mhm.
or the crop may not do.
Yes, true. Because of the
So you see,
seasons
if you
and the changes in climate.
yes, yes, yes. So if you have more than one crop growing, it means that if one fails, or if a chance that one fails, then the next one can give you something in boosting your farming thing. So
Okay.
diversification is very important as far as farming is concerned.
And is it profitable? Does it is it profitable? Because there's the theory of a farmer may be able to diversify his crops, but also there's a lot of labor and a lot of money involved when you are changing from one crop to another. So is it profitable for the farmer?
I think I can say that this I can say this.
Mm-hmm.
It can only be profitable if
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you put your cropping system. Like for example, you have yes, it is a bit laborious, and you see now this time you are dealing with different crops at different times, and they have different seasons, they have
Mm-hmm.
different way of doing things, because it's different. They are different crops. So I think the best way, so that you try to make it profitable,
Mm-hmm.
you can have maybe an example of short season crops and then long season crop together, so that at least one can boost each other. Like we have the short season crops can boost the long season crop. You see that one
Okay.
can be a bit profitable, and there will be less use of there will be less expenses. Like we have the the production cost might lower because that long season crops have been supported by the short season.
Okay.
So generally, we can say it's profitable.
So it is profitable. And for example, what are some of the approaches that farmers use to diversify their crops? Is there a particular approach that you use, or do you like completely remove one crop and you plant another one, or can you interbreed the crops? Is it possible to interbreed crops and call that diversification?
Yes, yes, it's possible. Like we have uh, farmers doing diversification through what you have said on like you change the cycle, you change the particular, you improve the particular crop that was there. You see now if
Mm-hmm.
something like we had the old generation crops, and maybe
Yes.
you need to change it to the current, like we have in avocado, or we even have in coffee. I have seen farmers doing that. You see, you have the old species of coffee, and because now
Mm-hmm.
you want to diversify, instead of now uprooting the whole thing and you plant, which will take a lot of time, you can be able to graft the young ones of the particular old crop. Now you'll get the new one. So that is by itself is a way of diversifying. Instead of now changing the whole thing in the farm, and then you starting afresh on that crop. You can also use the current crop that you have. So it's possible.
Different approaches. Are there any other approaches, or is
Yes,
it
it's also
just
a
those
different
two?
approach on diversification.
Uh-huh. So we can always interbreed, or we can always plant a different crop, a whole crop, and mix it with another one that does well in different seasons, so that you're always having produce. You're always removing produce from your farm. Sorry, we didn't get you.
Sorry. I think you had a technical error. I
What
can't hear.
I sorry, pardon. I asked. So the major two ways of crop diversification is inbreeding or changing a different crop, growing a different crop altogether. Those are the two
Yes,
major approaches that farmers mainly use.
yes, and the reason for the two method of diversification is
Yes.
because you don't need to be you don't need to have a time that you don't have a certain crop, so you can decide to do both as you diversify, so that you are still in the process of producing.
And how about once you start diversifying your crops, when it comes to taking care of the different crops, is there a moment that these two can clash? Can it become a problem taking care of two different plants in the same farm? Let's say if I had watermelons and in the same farm I had oranges. Is the upkeep and the taking care of the plants, is it going to be affecting one or the other? Or can you do you need to look for crops that are aligned with the same in the same spectrum? If it's fruits, it's fruits. If it's vegetables, it's vegetables. Or can I be able to mix them up?
I think that one is a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say is that
Yes.
it's not a must that you do crops that go hand in hand in terms of now the production. You can also decide to do different that have different apps. The reason it can bring problems is that remember different crops require different nutrition, they require different management. So the only thing that you need to do when you like in a case you decide to diversify different crops that do not have the same management programs or procedures and the feeding program. The only thing that you need to change to be keen on is now when you come to those crops, you need to understand that this crop require this management. This one require maybe this particular feeding. So as much as diversification is concerned, you are supposed to also note that the crops that you're growing, or the crop that you've decided to keep, maybe two crops or three crops, that they need, you need to know that they need different as much as their production is concerned. So you need to look at every crop by its own management practices and the feeding program, because like you talked about watermelons, maybe olives. Remember, watermelons is a short time crop. It usually take around 4 to 5 months to harvest. But you see now, when you talk about something like a crop like olive, it is a crop that can take years and still harvesting. So remember, uh, another thing to note is that watermelon is a heavy feeder, and so it have different feeding method, or the nutrition requirement is different from that one of olive. But looking at both crops, that is a very good diversification, because now by the time now watermelons will only take around 4 months, and then you sell it, and you're done with the business. But you see now, you'll be able to be still in the market selling oranges, because oranges will at least will take you maybe if you planted them together, maybe after 1 year you'll start now having your production on oranges. So different crops will require different approach, and that is in terms of the feeding and the management. Because if you look at our example, that is watermelon and the orange. Remember, if you look up at a plant like orange, that is a plant by itself. You see now, for watermelon, it's a different crop. So they have different approach on the management and the feeding.
Is mainly about the profits that a farmer gets to have. So how is it? How does the farmer benefit in terms of profits? Or does it does it affect small farmers or large scale farmers in a different way? That in terms of profit margin, if you are a small farmer, did you get lower profits, or is it harder for you to diversify your crops versus a large scale farmer?
A very good question, Joki. I think both farmers, the one small scale farming and the one doing the large scale farming, they both have their taste the same. Because if you look at you talked about the losses and the profits,
Yes.
you'll be able to find out that, let's first base ourselves on the large scale farmer who's doing diversification. You'll be able to find out that maybe that farmer is have, let's say, like 6 acres of land, and now you can imagine uh, doing around the whole 6 acres. You do like tomatoes, and then it comes a chance that the prices are low, or the crops have been. You see, what usually happens is that crop diversification not only bring about the profit, but also the losses. You see now, if a chance come, then the the produce are so much in the market. If you have done a diversified approach, of the same crop, like let's say you have different crops of the same piece of area, you'll be able to find out even losses will be low. Because you did maybe around 2 acres of tomatoes, the other acre you did something else. You see now, even the profit is a bit balanced, because if you did the whole 6 acres with the tomatoes and then the prices are low, then it will mean that the whole enterprises or the whole thing is done. You're done. You're down. So it means if you do something like you did different crops on the same area, it means that different crop will have different prices in the market. Hence, the profit is a bit balanced, and it's not on one time. It is balanced throughout the season. So I think diversification by itself is can bring a lot of things to do with the profit. The profit margin is a bit higher if you had diversified. Yes, back to you, get out.
Do you think there is a lot of information out there for farmers in terms of crop diversification? Have there been any reach outs from the government, or maybe private agriculturalists to educate farmers on the benefits of crop diversification? Are there any avenues that farmers can reach out and be able to understand more about this?
I think crop diversification is not something that has not been being addressed over the time, and I think currently after even the government coming up with such approach, and mainly because of the problems that we are experiencing in terms of climate change and all that. Because like I said in the start of the discussion, is that diversification is a tool that we are using even in the approach to these climatic conditions that are ever changing. So I think this is something that even if it's not there, and maybe bodies like private companies and even us, the agronomists, and also the government, we are supposed to have a channel that is or an approach that is taking this education to the farmers, because this is something that will be able to give us solutions to even the changing of the climate conditions. You can right now, as we talk, we are experiencing very high temperature.
Or how about, it has been, crop diversification has been lauded as a way for disaster preparedness. Um, okay, our guest has been left. Okay, so what we have been discussing, crop diversification has been recommended as a way of disaster preparedness. And I think the reason that this has been lauded and been very has been very advocated for is mainly because when you look at your farm and you realize that the particular crop that you have is not of, it does not do well in that particular climate that you are in, it makes you, it may make you feel hope. But you do not need to be hopeless, because as we have had the experts tell us, we can be able to diversify our crop and take a different route just by changing up the crop that you had on your farm. You can be able to the disaster that is droughts and floods. And it's not just about droughts. Floods have also been a very, very big disaster in farms when you plant crops and there's too much water and all your crops are destroyed. So it's not just in the semi-arid areas or in areas that have a lot of sunlight. No, it can also happen in the wetter spaces. We have also had that we can be able to not only diversify our crops by growing different crops, we can be able to interbreed our crops. And by interbreeding does not necessarily mean that you're growing GMO crops. That is not what it means. It means that you can be able to take a different crop and merge it with another one to be able to give you a very resilient crop. And that is why one of the advantages is that they are very resilient crops. And that is one of the reasons, because you are merging a strong plant with a different crop to be able to make it into a very stronger crop. And also there's also a lot of benefits in terms of the soil, the soil management, because once you start learning and truly engrossing yourself in the process of diversifying, so now um, I would want us to talk. There's a lot of policies that governments have implemented. Government have introduced subsidiaries for farmers so that farmers may be able to, they may stop complaining about the money involved, the labor involved in diversifying their crops. So government is trying to reach out to farmers by offering them incentives, by offering them different subsidiaries so that they can go back into their farms and make profits in their farms without them having to face a lot of losses. There's programs that have been created. There's workshops that farmers get to go. They intermingle and are able to talk with different farmers and learn from one another. And especially that is a very good idea coming from different parts of the country, because our country is a very big country. So they can be able to learn from those who come from the drier areas and the wetter areas. And once they mix up the ideas, they they become better farmers and they go back home knowing better about what they can be able to plant in their farmers. But as I was also saying, there is a bit of disadvantages when it comes to crop diversification, and this mostly fall on the small farmers rather than the larger farmers. So, okay, so we have our guest back. Let us continue with our talk. Hello, Mr. Getao. I was talking about So we were talking about some of the disadvantages, especially on the small scale farmers. Once you're a small scale farmer, you may think that you may find it very difficult, and especially very in terms of labor and in terms of the capital that you're going to invest, and also the space. Space is a very important factor when it comes to crop diversification, because once you have a small area piece of land, you may find it difficult to portion it and portion it into different sections. But this is not a problem that large scale farmers get to experience, since they have a lot of land. They have a lot of land that they can be able to play around with, segment, and make into different crops. But for a small scale farmer, that may prove difficult, since the spacing is an issue. And also, as a small scale farmer, you may not be experiencing the profits and the money as the large scale farmer may be having. So that may lead you to have problems. So what what mainly is advised is, as a small scale farmer, what you can do is just inbreed your particular crops. Once you go into the route of inbreeding, then you are able to use the same piece of land that you did have. Instead of having to plant different crops, just focus on inbreeding. And once you inbreed your plants, they become better, they are more resilient, they produce more. So you still get the same benefits of crop diversification without necessarily having to compromise on the land space. And for the large scale farmer, I would advise them to be open into dividing and segmenting their lands into different sectors, and making different crops, so that because the space is available, and also they may have access to money and labor, which is actually a very effective strategy for crop diversification. Mainly Mr. Mwangi, Mr. Mwangi, I was asking about the resilience. One of the benefits of crop diversification is resilience of plants. So how does crop diversification increase the resilience of crops?
Hello, sorry for that. I think someone was trying to reach me out, and that's why I switched off. So, to Madam Doki, something very important to the farmers. Don't know if you can get me.
One of the benefits of crop diversification is the resilience of crops. How exactly does the crop diversification increase resilience of crops?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us, Mr. Mongi?
Yes, yes, I can get you very well. Uh,
Okay.
I can get
The
on very well.
question I had asked was,
Yes,
a benefit of crop diversification is the resilience of crops. How exactly would you be able to explain to us how exactly the crop diversification increases resilience in crops?
yes,
Can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you. I don't know why it's buffering.
Sorry, it may be the network.
So I was saying, if you can get me. So I was saying resilience of the diversification. These are very important is that you'll be able to find out that diversification mostly will help or will be the profit felt the large scale farmers. Because remember, when you talk about large scale farmer, uh, maybe big farmers, you'll find out that these are small scale farmers who's doing whatever cropping, maybe not in big sizes like compared to the large farmers, to the large scale farmers. So now what usually happen that the profit or the rate of the profit on the application is mostly felt by large scale farmers. And maybe one day I can advise small scale farmers. Small scale farmers now, those are the one now will benefit from the application if they try to change the state or the, what we are calling like to change the particular crop that you have to a different one. Maybe because you'll be able to find out that as small scale farmers, will, for example, have about 20 trees of avocado. Now that is the indigenous one, and because he is a small scale farmer, he can be able to change because he don't have another land or a big land compared to the large scale farmers. He can maybe
Yes.
change those indigenous avocados to the current avocados that are highly produced. You see that one he has diversified because he has changed from one particular cropping system to another or to a current one. So that is where we can maybe say that a small scale farmers is benefiting from diversification. But for a farmer who is having or what we call the large scale farmers, they can diversify because they have big land or enough land to do the diversification. Like they have big areas of land and they can say maybe this particular acre they can do this, the other one they can do this. So that is why I wanted to clarify. Back to you, Jockey.
Um, what? How does crop diversification increase resilience in crops?
Diversification improve on the Letherian.
Yes,
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
I'm asking, how does crop diversification in farms, how does it increase the resilience of the crops in the farm? The resilience to disease, to weather. How does crop diversification increase the resilience?
Very good. Like when you talk about ingredient, that is an improvement on the crop. Like we have, I can see this. We have, like for example, if you're doing diversification on a piece of land, if you do more than one crop, then it means
Yeah.
uh, uh, the approach to maybe the disease control. Uh, Remember, if you do a diversification, maybe in a piece of land, and then the next season you repeat a different crop. We know that this crop by itself is crop rotation. And you see crop rotation, you have improved the resilience of a certain crop that will come because maybe chances of a pest that was there. which could have affected the second crop, has been destroyed because it has not got exposed.
Mm-hmm.
You get? So
Yes.
it means by diversification, you are doing what we call crop rotation. And as you do crop rotation, it means even the chances of diseases in a particular crop are low because you over the other period you had done another maybe of different species crop that could not be attacked by a particular pest or a disease. Which means if you introduce another crop, chances of disease and pest are not there
Mm-hmm.
because they could
Yes.
have they tend to have been stabbed and gone to existence. So that, by that you see diversification is also bringing the resilience of the crops.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk about the farmer, who can a farmer diversify in terms of crops and animals? Is it also diversification when you intermingle between the crops and farm animals, or is that a different?
Is you've done on a different approach, like you're doing crop production at the same time you are doing animal production, and this is a very good way of diversifying your let's say your farm or your farming enterprise. Because remember, whatever you are growing in the farm, like let's talk about you introduce in a given area, you do cropping on maybe maize, you do cropping on maybe uh, things like okay in a particular crop. You see, by that you have diversified your farm in this way. For example, if you have done maize in your farm and you also have animals in your farm, remember these animals will feed on whatever is coming from the farm. That is one advantage, such a kind of a diversification. The other thing is that the animals will be giving manure to your crops. So you see that one by itself is a kind of a symbiotic relationship between the enterprise on animal and the enterprise on the crop production. So by that, it's a good diversification because even the cost of production on some of the cost would have been clashed. Like for example, it means that you will have enough manure to give to your crops. You'll have enough feed to feed your animals. Get and in case if, maybe on the side of maize field, you can maybe use that that crop as food to your animals. So by that there is a good approach in both enterprise, which is we can term it as a symbiotic relationship kind of, because both crops and animals are benefiting from the same. And you see also through animal you also be able to you also be able to get maybe milk. You can also be able to get maybe you sell meat and a kind of a relationship. So it's by itself it's a wide diversification. Yes.
Should a farmer consider when planning to diversify his farm? What are some of the first factors he should be looking at?
Remember when you talk about diversification, we talked about that diversification is uh, mainly felt by the people who are doing it in large scale farming. Because if you want to do diversification, some of the factors to consider is that you have to have capital. That is number one. Number two, when you if you want to do now the diversification, it means you need to have enough land for the same. Am I clear? Yeah, so you need to look at a number of factors like you need to have number one capital. You need to have land for the same. The other thing is that you need to improve on now the management and the app, because remember different diversification will require different management and all. So I think those are the three most important factors to consider before now thinking of diversification. Yes. Yes, it's true. It can be heavily influenced by the market because if maybe a particular market of a certain commodity is not doing well, then it will mean that you have to diversify the same because by way of diversification, it can be so much influenced by the market demand. And another thing is that you see there are crops that usually go hand in hand. There are different crops, but they go hand in hand. Look at a crop like if you look at an example of the basic crops that we see there. If you think about if the prices of something like what a good example, mm, maybe we can have a good example on why the market can really influence the importance or the need to diversify. Because I believe, yes,
area, a farmer can decide to plant a crop that is resilient to that drought area. So that's an example of influence of the market, because the market around him is looking for something to have during those difficult times. Such is that such an example? Uh,
have drought at this particular, like right now you're experiencing. There are farmers that plant grasses. They had plant grasses. Why? Because they knew or they had predicted that maybe in a particular time this crop will be in high demand because it shall not be there. So you see that one as farmers has been influenced by the fact that has been influenced by the market to do the same.
okay.
Yes.
So it is said that crop diversification also helps in terms of soil erosion and soil management. How is that? How is that? Can you please explain to us how diversifying your crops may also help you in terms of soil management in your farm?
We've talked about different crops. They require different management. And when you talk about management, mostly
Okay.
like if you take an example of things like bean production. Okay, bean production, you understand that they have what we call the root nodules, which convert the nitrogen that is in the air and assimilate it in the soil. So it means if you had planted, you see that that crop by itself is kind of improving the soil.
Mm-hmm.
If you introduce another crop in the next season, it means that the soil has
Mm-hmm.
been replenished back by whatever you had planted. Okay, remember some also other crops, they tend to be some crops are cover crop. And what does that mean? If in your previous season you introduce a cover crop, it means that the soil has been prevented from erosion. So by that, you see, different crops have, if you had diversified, it means they have different uh, importance on the soil as much as the soil is concerned. Yes.
We have heard a lot about the benefits. So, what are some of the challenges of crop diversification? What are some of the challenges farmers face when they try to diversify their farms?
And the most common is the market failure. You see, sometimes you might diversify in the name of trying to get maybe a suitable market of the same kind of diversification, and sometimes it fails. So that is the first thing and uh, 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 the most common disadvantage as far as diversification is concerned. The other thing, the other thing about diversification is whatever you're talking about the climate change. The climate will change. You see, the climate will always affect the whole thing. If, for example, a climate change, all the crops that you had diversified in the enterprises will be affected. So that is another problem is a crop may fail, maybe probably from different. logical requirements, and all that. So you see, those are the the first one I've talked about market fail. The second I've talked about crop fail, about climate change, and I've also talked about I've talked about the particular crop, right? Like maybe when you talk about climate will affect the whole thing. Like no crop will be spared for that. Yes,
as a challenge,
yes, yes,
because
yes, yes.
in one end of the stick you're trying to make crops that are drought resistant, flood resistant, and on the other side those same weather conditions may be a reason for you to lose your crop.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay. So, and so how about money? Isn't money a very big disadvantage? The money and the labor.
We said that when we talk about diversification is mainly applied by those people doing it large scale. So it means money can also be a factor or can be a balance to you diversifying. Remember, if you need to diversify, it means that if you are doing it on a large scale. It means you'll need a lot of capital. If there is no capital, then that is one. That is also another disadvantage. You may not be able to diversify. I think that is one of the first points as much as a disadvantage are concerned. Yes,
Introduction of GMOs in the same sphere as crop diversification? Is crops that are farmed in GMO method almost similar to inbreeding your crops in diversification? Are they similar?
I think that is something else because one thing I've been able to understand from they are talking about these genetically modified crops is that uh, uh, kind of they are saying it's an approach on the same. And I think because I've not been so much in discussion with the GMO in fact, because I think there are so many things that they need both us and the farmers to understand as much as the GMO is. You see that one also bringing some other things. Same. But I think the introduction of the GMO, what they are saying is that it's kind of coming to diversify because remember these are crops that are maybe resilient to drought. They can do well in the condition that you are experiencing. So by so saying, it means that it could be, it could be, or it could not be. Because I don't want to get into much details on the GMO and because I think that is something that which has started now dying off. Because I think there are so many things that those people who are bringing the genetic report they need to understand or to make us understand. Because I tend to think instead of coming with an approach of such a GMO thing, I think they can come up with because obviously even the GMO and all this we're talking about diversification, remember it is being brought by one thing. It talked about climate change. They're mainly introducing this thing because of the climate change. But I believe on my own opinion that there are some better options, like better strategies to curb this climate change instead of now coming up with something like GMO, which need farmers and even those the farmer is also a consumer to understand. Yes,
You would suggest crop diversification rather than having GMOs, in your opinion?
in my opinion, I would say
Mm-hmm.
Because in as much as diversification is, remember we've done climate change in two times. In two parts. We described it in advantages, and we've described it in the disadvantage time side. So it means, in as much as diversification is, even the approach on the climate change should be addressed. Like, in as much as diversity, we are right now we're experiencing drought in most of the most part of the country. So it means, because soon shall maybe experience rainfall in almost all part of the country. And another approach by that is that maybe there should be introduction of strategy like the harvesting of water, so that even in time of drought, on the same side, because in as much as diversification is concerned, diversification I think is leaning on a branch that is climate change, because in as much as the climate change may continue, even if diversification sometimes may fail. So the approach here is mainly on the strategies that, which can be put in place, so that we observe this climate change, so that we have better means to fight this climate change, because that is the pandemic that is bringing everything, even the introduction of the GMO, the introduction of certification. So I think those two, they are leaning on a certain branch from, the fact that we are experiencing drought, and we have what we are calling climatic change. And that is what I'm talking about. Should have different approach, so that it will be on the safe side. Because if you don't have approach on the same, it means even diversification will fail and the GMO will fail. Yes.
Once you start diversifying your crops, you and especially in terms of inbreeding your crops, that also makes you have a sustainable crop, because you're no longer even using fertilizers that are harmful to the soil. Because now, do you need to actually use the fertilizers, or can you just rely on the crops by themselves? Do you need to add more things to the soil, or can you just inbreed your crops? Say, like the example you had given of watermelons and another fruit.
So I think,
Mm.
from what I understood from your question, that remember,
Mm-hmm.
all these improvements, they are coming to
Mm-hmm.
or to reduce the cost of production. If, for example, you've talked about, like, maybe you breed a certain, it means you are breeding it to improve particular crop from its initial state to another state, maybe adaptable
Mm-hmm.
to the current situation of production. So it means, like, we're also coming up with this organic farming. That is also a diversification. Now organic farming. So you see,
Mm-hmm.
all these approaches are coming up with less cost of production,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the same as whatever you had used. We are introducing crops that are maybe they could have, maybe they are drought resistant, they are disease and pest resistant. It means, if they are disease and resistant, it means that you'll have less use of chemicals, because the
Mm-hmm.
particular crop is experienced the attack of disease and
Mm-hmm.
yes. So I think you see, we are coming up with an approach that is that is bringing more solution, whatever, compared to the initial state of crop.
Environmental and sustainable farming, because of the reasons that you have just mentioned. Um, so another issue I wanted to talk about is how does, as being an agronomist, which you are. Hello. So, Oh my God. Example, when we talked about diversifying from coffee and switching to avocados, are there any people, are there any countries that you can give examples that this has worked for? Because some research I've done has only shown like this is very popular in Asia, but can our coffee farmers branch into the avocado business, or is it going to be a difficult fit for them?
Okay, remember, we think that diversification will happen due to different reasons. Like maybe uh, if the venture into coffee is a bit not profitable, then it will mean that farmers will be able to diversify or move to another enterprise like you've talked about avocados. So I think diversification will only happen if there's a solution that need to be done for you to be on the safer side. Because it's possible to do that. But now, uh, in as much as you're going to do that, is it because the venture you want to go in, is it that it's profitable or is it that it's not adding any value? You have to have your own reason as to why you are changing or you are diversifying from the production of coffee to the production of but currently I've not seen people doing that in the country, but maybe in yes, I have not seen that. What I've been able to see that they are what the diversification moves they are coming to whereby you find out that they are changing the cropping or let's say talk of coffee. Like we had the old coffee France. An example of SL8. So what the farmers are doing, because they want to improve on the coffee production and all that, they are coming up with method of grafting same coffee, now bringing it now the current the the modern crop of coffee that is from 11. So you see by that they are diversifying. So remember this old coffee or the indigenous species, they tend to use a lot of chemicals in the control of disease and pest. At the same times, you find out they are being affected by problem of low quality or low use, also in terms of quality. So what they do, they are diversifying by changing, grafting the same coffee and now to an improved variety, still on the same uh, plant. So by that you can see they are diverse. Because they have changed now the cycle from the old indigenous coffee now to a modern.
What would you diversify on? Farm,
Sorry, sorry.
food products. As an agronomist, in your opinion, what would you advise farmers to diversify on? Cash crops or food crops? Which is a more easier transition?
Uh, when we talk about cash crop and food crop, remember cash crop they tend to take uh, more time, maybe to flourish and to start harvesting. So I think the best approach you can maybe diversify on both if you have enough land to do the same. Because at least remember most cash crops, uh, we call them we term them as direct crops because if you look something like coffee or mangoes, those are crops will producing maybe in 2 years times and going that way. But you see if you come now to food crops usually takes less time to mature and to start uh, bringing money to a farmer. So it means if a farmer maybe for example has bigger run the same, maybe he can diversify on both the cash crop Yes.
In the current times, we tend to rely on technology a lot. Are there any technology ways that you have discovered or have seen being used in crop diversification?
You talked
You talked
about
about
technology specification. I'm saying, are you saying are you talking about
have you come across or have you seen or do you know of any use of technology that has been used in crop diversification?
yes? When you talk about, for you to be on the, like we've talked about, if you want to be safe, as much as diversification is, remember we are bearing this in mind, climatical change that we have. So if in as much as diversification is concerned, then it means you will need to now to improve even on the system, the farming system that you are using, so that you be on the safe side. Like right now, we're talking about uh, different method of the farming and the modern one. Like we are talking about the introduction of greenhouses, because it will mean that if you have maybe several greenhouses, you're doing this particular crop, the other one you're doing this particular crop. At least a greenhouse is something that is uh, also helping you to curb with the current situation on climate change. Yes. And also, we also have the other things like the drip irrigation systems. Remember, these are systems that will help you so much on the diversification, because you'll be able now to avoid there's an advantage. If for example a climate change, remember it will change to all the crops that you have diversified. So for you to be on the safe side, maybe you can introduce these systems like the greenhouse farming. We have the drip irrigation system, the overhead system. You see those current methods of farming that will help you now. That will help you so much, as much as the diversification is concerned. Yes.
Diversification is limited to urban areas or rural? Well, in terms of farmers, because once you start talking about crop diversification, it means that you have to also be you have to start learning more, and we see that that is different for the people who are in the urban sectors and the people who are in the rural sectors. So do you think that crop diversification is limited to only urban areas, or can the people from the rural areas also practice it on a large scale instead of just small scale?
Those are two approaches, because if you look at like you said, if for diversification to happen, be profitable. But we talked about factors, and it means that those people who are maybe in the urban areas, the chances are land are small compared now to those people who are in the urban. So you see that we have a difference. But I tend to think those people who benefit from the diversification are those people in the villages, and they have a big piece of land. Also, in as much as those people who are in the in the urban areas, you can also diversify by what we talked about, moving from 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 a crop to another one. So, like we talked about, because we know that in people who are in the urban areas, the land are small. They are relatively small. It means those people who the mansion is concerned are those people in the village, or those people in the urban, in the rural areas. Now, yes.
crop diversification is something that a farmer can look into as a long-term way of farming, because we have seen that some of the challenges are, the soil, your soil is going to continuously become weak because of changing the crops. So do you think it can actually be a long-term investment for a farmer to keep on diversifying his crops after every season?
Because I think we've talked about. Are you getting me? Hello, can you hear me? So okay, now I think this is a better approach to a farmer, because remember we talked about diversification is improving on the soil structure and the soil of the farmer. So it go to benefit of his or her soil. It can be used as a long term thing, in as much as there is conservation of the soil, and there is, and remember this diversification is by itself supporting other enterprises, like it's about different prices. And in case of a crop sale, the farmer will, because the other crop will maybe get some good, which will now boost it. So it means it's a good thing to do, and I think it can be so much profitable if you try to do it as long term thing. Because remember, you'll not inquire a lot compared to that person is one place or crop on a of area. Yes, yes, I can hear you.
I wanted to know is, in the long term of using of changing up the plants of the crops in your farms, isn't that going to reach a point that the soil is no longer going to be able to withstand the different changes? Or if you just change crops, it's going to like change the components of the soil in long term, that in a long term.
So I get your question, Jackie. I think I think even as you do it as a long term thing, you also need to check uh, also on the oil, because remember different maybe will add benefit to the soil. Some of them will now affect the soil. So you have to keenly check on on the state of the soil, because if you decide now to do it as a long term, then it means it will come a point that the soil will, if you don't look, if you don't take care, it means that your soil will now get what you've said about, what you've talked about. The soil now will become just because it's like you're doing a particular cropping over and over again. So you need to also check on the soil.
Continuously maintaining the crop.
Yes. You need to check the soil as much as you're diversifying on a long term basis.
Is intercropping and crop diversification similar? Are they similar, or are they different concepts?
I think to some point they are similar, but they are two different things. Because remember when you talk about uh, I think what they share the desires and the advantage, but they are two different things. Because when sorry,
You kindly tell the viewers what is the major difference between intercropping and crop diversification?
good. Okay, we said crop diversification involve planting of two or more crop on a given area. And when you now talk about intercropping, it means you are planting two, you are introducing two crops in a given area. Like for example, you have beans and maize. That is intercropping. You can decide what to do another good example of intercropping. You can decide to do uh, what we call what we have maybe an intercrop sukuma wiki, maybe some like spinach and all that. That is intercropping. You see, you are introducing two crops at the same time in a given age. So intercropping, I think, would say the only difference is that intercropping you are mainly involving two crops. But when you talk about diversification, it's a broad kind of an approach that you're having different crops and more than one or even more than two. So that is the difference. Yes.
Are there any incentives the government has put up to help farmers in terms of crop diversification? Are there any workshops, or is there any help from the government to help curb this the problem of drought in terms of enriching the farmers in crop diversification?
Those workshops.
What I'm asking is there any incentive from the government that you know of that is there to help farmers to to either learn or to be taught, or even some of education, and also being given some crops from the government to help in crop diversification?
So I think on you're asking about incentives or the government coming into this thing of diversification. I think on my end, don't think I've had any. Like I was, like I was saying that this is the time that this is the suggestion that we as people who are involved in the farm are so much wishing if the government could come like introduce even the knowledge on diversification. Because remember, this diversification by itself, we said it's one of the solutions to the climate change we experience. But I don't think I have heard of any incentive that is being given by the government to cap the or to help in diversification. Not unless there is any, but I've not heard on myself.
To farmers, and according to our expert, there is not he has not heard of any. But I think that would be a very, very good way to be able to help out in the crisis that we have been having in hungers. Also, I had a question: is does crop diversification only work in areas that have arid arid weather, or is it something that can also be embraced in places that have wetter lands? Or is it just that people have to plant crops that are drought resistant? Can you do it in a place that has wetter lands?
I think diversification is,
Mm-hmm.
is like we've talked about, is a solution to the change in the climate. Diversification, remember, from my app that you can do in both dry season, also the wet areas. Diversification by itself is adopted. in almost depending on the approach that you need. Just remember, you do diversification, dry areas because of maybe, uh, reduce the risk of a crop or a season failing. You do diversification in areas that are grab the market to be on the safe side as much as market is concerned. That is on where maybe there is enough rainfall and all that. So diversification can be applied in both sides. That is on the arid side, on the highland side. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mwangi. We have learned a lot from you. It has been a pleasure having you here and for educating us on the benefits of crop diversification.
So thank you
So
very
thank
much,
you very much.
Joking.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Okay, okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. As we have heard from our expert today, crop diversification is something that can be very beneficial for us all, regardless of whether you come from wetter areas or semi-arid areas. You just need to educate yourself on exactly what you need to do. You need to educate yourself on the kind of crops that can be inbred in your farm, the kind of crops that you can change up and bring into your farm. You need to educate yourself on the types of soil that your farm has. So it's you first need to get a lot of knowledge for you to be able to dive into crop diversification. But it's something that is very beneficial. Not only does it benefit you as a farmer, it benefits the environment around you. It benefits the people around you, because as a farmer you get to have profit all year long. It does not matter whether you have plants that are growing during the dry season or during the wet season. You get to get produce throughout the year. Also the environment, because once you are able to plant crops that are resilient and do not use a lot of pesticides and a lot of fertilizers, you are also enriching the environment and the people around you, because the people around you get to be able to get produce and get to have food throughout the year. So you do not get to experience drought or floods. There's also a benefit in terms of it has also opened you up into a different market, a new market. For example, like we said, if you're a coffee farmer and you diversify into avocado, then you gain a different market in avocado that you did not have when you planted coffee. We have seen a lot of benefits in crop diversification. We would hope that the government would also reach out and involve farmers so that they can be able to help carve out some of the issues, because like we said in the beginning, about 4.4 million people are facing starvation, and some of these issues can be curbed by by crop diversifying and studying the soil and studying what is happening in those parts of our country. But there's also the advantage that it does not discriminate whether you are a small scale farmer or a large scale farmer. It's perfectly okay. You can diversify your small piece of land, and the large scale farmer can diversify his large piece of land. It does not necessarily mean that just because you do not have enough space, you cannot be able to diversify the kind of crops that you have right in your farm. But also, if you're a large scale farmer, it does have that extra benefit of having space and having a lot of land and also resources to be able to change your crops and make them different. We have also heard of some of the disadvantages, because if something has an advantage, it also has some disadvantage, but the disadvantages are outweighed by the advantages that crop diversification can bring you. So I would really like for our viewers to go ahead and research more on crop diversification, and for whatever it is that you find out, you can write to us, you can comment down below, you can tell us different ways, different benefits that maybe you have faced as a farmer, different benefits that you have seen of a farmer near you, or have had a farmer near you has experienced due to crop diversification. So this is a topic that we will keep on looking into. We'll keep on looking for experts to talk to, so that we can be able to keep on broadening ourselves and understanding how exactly we can be able to help. And in any small way that we can be able to help, it's something that we would be very, very interested in. Um, and so next time in the Farmers Drive, we are going to be also discussing about, we're going to be continuing on with this discussion, but we're going to try and look at it from the other side, because today we didn't get to talk about animals that much. We didn't get to delve into diversifying your farm from crops into farming, into livestock farming. And that is a place and the topic that I would really like for us to discuss and to talk about, because the expert has mentioned some of the benefits of mingling and intermingling your crops and your livestock, and the benefits that it can bring for you. So on the next session, that is what we're going to be delving into, to understand fully how we can capitalize on all the areas of farming, so we're never left without a way to make profit, or a way to make our environment better. Until next time, I've been your host, Njoki Gitao.